And the wind cried, Jesse. Tonight, Jesse had made a mistake, a bad one. He had made a resolution to lose weight. Tessa hadn't said so, but he was sure that his weight was the main reason she dumped him. She'd treated him like crap, but still, he wanted her back, and that meant getting in shape. So, every night, Jesse went for a walk. He lived across from a big park with a lake in the center, and every night, after dinner, he would make a circuit of the lake, a distance of 4 to 5 kilometers. At first, it was slow going, but after 30 days, or rather 30 nights, he was able to cover the distance in less than an hour. Better yet, he'd lost 14 pounds. He had started doing stretches at home and had begun working out with weights, and in the spring, he thought he might make the plunge and join a gym. He would be a new man by the next time Tessa laid eyes on him. He didn't even mind the park being pitch dark when he went walking. He'd been helped by good weather. The winter had been extremely mild, more like a long, extended fall. But all that ended on the 13th. For on that day, a polar vortex descended on the city, with high winds, snow, and below-zero temperatures. So it would have been a good night to stay indoors. But Jesse wanted to walk. He was afraid that if he started staying home, no matter how good the reason, no matter how cold it was, his campaign to get fit would lose momentum. And in the end, he'd lose Tessa. Yeah, it was cold. But if he really bundled up? So Jesse headed out into the darkness and the wind and the storm, and by the time he reached the path that led around the lake, he knew he'd messed up big time. The cold was so intense, it was almost a living thing. He had just made the call to abort and head home when the snow squall came. Jesse found himself enveloped in a tornado, a tsunami of swirling white flakes which filled his eyes and rubbed his face raw with a barrage of tiny frozen needles. Blinded, he lurched off the path and into the fir trees, whose thick branches might provide him some shelter from the blast. Jesse careened into and off a number of fir boughs before butting up against a tree trunk. He was safe, out of the wind, but not out of the severe biting cold. And as the minutes ticked by and the air became ever more frigid, he knew he couldn't stay. This was ridiculous. He was only 10 minutes from home, yet he was trapped. He'd have to make a break for it. The instant the snow died down, he couldn't stay. He noticed that for some reason it seemed to be getting lighter, so he looked through the branches and saw figures. There was a meadow or cleared space adjacent to the trees, a great white space in which some figures were moving. But what figures? 3 women were dancing in the snow. 3 beautiful women. 3 naked women. Jesse was stunned. They were the most beautiful women he had ever seen. They put Tessa to shame. But didn't they feel the cold? The deep freeze that was almost killing him? Jesse watched enthralled as the women cavorted over the snow, and he saw they were as graceful as they were beautiful. And then they stopped, frozen as if they were ice sculptures, and Jesse realized they were staring towards him. And then they came. They surrounded Jesse, touching him with hands that felt like kisses, and drew him into the white space and into the dance. And as Jesse swirled around with the beautiful dancers, moving with a grace he did not inherently possess, they were joined by the blast, the storm, the drifting snow that swirled around and around and around and around until the whiteness turned to black. Jesse woke up in hospital. They had found him next morning, severely frostbitten. The good news? He'd managed to lose 50 pounds. The bad news? He'd lost 50 pounds because they'd had to amputate both his legs below the knees. And Jesse woke up screaming. The first thing he did was look down at the foot of the bed. And yeah, his legs were still there, still intact. He jumped out of bed, glad he could still walk, and pulled back the bedroom curtain. It was a bright, sunny spring morning, the snow long gone, perfect for a walk. But he didn't want to go for a walk. The terrible nightmare had killed his desire for healthy exercise. For several minutes, Jesse sat like a lump on the side of his bed. And then suddenly, he got angry. To hell with Tessa. Why was he trying to lose weight to gain her approval? She'd treated him like garbage. And he suddenly realized he no longer cared. No longer cared for her. For a moment, he thought about letting himself go. Letting himself go. But only for a moment. Jesse decided that he wanted to lose weight, to get in shape. But now for himself, not for anyone else's approval, just his own. Jesse dressed, put on his walking shoes, and stepped out into the bright spring morning. There were lots of beautiful women out there, better women than Tessa, and he looked forward to meeting them. But hopefully without snow. The moral of the story? At the end of the day, the only approval that matters is your own. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here, that's PX Here, while the music was the appropriately named Ice Demon by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.